Welcome to A Year of War and Peace. I'm your host, Brian E. Denton. A Year of War and Peace is a daily, year-long, chapter-by-chapter reading of and meditation on Leo Tolstoy's epic novel, War and Peace. In these videos and podcasts, you'll be treated to a free reading of one chapter per day of the novel, plus a reflective essay I've written individually tailored to that day's chapter. These readings are offered for free, though if you'd like to support me, you can do so in one of three ways. First, you could purchase my ebook, A Year of War and Peace. It features the entire novel, plus all of my reflective essays, and it's only $2.99 on Amazon.com. You could also become a patron at patreon.com/Brian E. Denton. If you sign up there, you'll receive a sonnet once a month, plus a link to an ebook of my collected sonnets. Finally, if you like, you can make a one-time donation to my PayPal account. The email there is brianedenton@gmail.com. You can also use that email to contact me. I'd be happy to hear from you. Your support is greatly appreciated.
Today's reading and reflection is on Chapter 136. Chapter 136. Count Ilya Rostov had resigned the position of Marshal of the Nobility because it involved him in too much expense, but still his affairs did not improve. Natasha and Nicholas often noticed their parents conferring together anxiously and privately, and heard suggestions of selling the fine ancestral house and estate near Moscow. It was not necessary to entertain so freely as when the Count had been marshal, and life at Ocherdanya was quieter than in former years, but still the enormous house and its lodges were full of people, and more than 20 sat down to table every day. These were all their own people, who had settled down in the house almost as members of the family, or persons who were, it seemed, obliged to live in the Count's house. Such were Demler the musician and his wife, Vogel the dancing master and his family, Belova, an old maiden lady, an inmate of the house, and many others such as Petya's tutors, the girl's former governess, and other people who simply found it preferable and more advantageous to live in the Count's house than at home. They had not as many visitors as before, but the old habits of life without which the Count and Countess could not conceive of existence remained unchanged. There was still the hunting establishment, which Nicholas had even enlarged, the same 50 horses and 15 grooms in the stables, the same expensive presents and dinner parties to the whole district on name days. There were still the Count's games of whist in Boston, at which, spreading out his cards so that everybody could see them, he let himself be plundered of hundreds of rubles every day by his neighbors, who looked upon an opportunity to play a rubber with Count Rostov as a most profitable source of income. The Count moved in his affairs as in a huge net, trying not to believe that he was entangled, but becoming more and more so at every step, and feeling too feeble to break the meshes, or to set to work carefully and patiently to disentangle them. The Countess, with her loving heart, felt that her children were being ruined, that it was not the Count's fault, for he could not help being what he was, that, though he tried to hide it, he himself suffered from the unconsciousness of his own and his children's ruin, and she tried to find means of remedying the position. From her feminine point of view, she could see only one solution, namely, for Nicholas to marry a rich heiress. She felt that this to be their last hope, and that if Nicholas refused the match she had found for him, she would have to abandon the hope of ever getting matters right. This match was with Julie Karagina, the daughter of excellent and virtuous parents, a girl the Rostovs had known since childhood, and who had now become a wealthy heiress through the death of her last brothers. The Countess had written direct to Julie's mother in Moscow suggesting a marriage between their children, and had received a favorable answer from her. Karagina had replied that for her part she was agreeable, and everything depended on her daughter's inclination. She invited Nicholas to come to Moscow. Several times the Countess, with tears in her eyes, told her son that now both her daughters were settled, her only wish was to see him married. She said she could lie down in her grave peacefully if that were accomplished. Then she told him that she knew of a splendid girl and tried to discover what he thought about marriage. At other times she praised Julie to him and advised him to go to Moscow during the holidays to amuse himself. Nicholas guessed what his mother's remarks were leading to, and during one of these conversations induced her to speak quite frankly. She told him that her only hope of getting their affairs disentangled now lay in his marrying Julie Karegina. But Mama, suppose I loved a girl who has no fortune. Would you expect me to sacrifice my feelings and my honor for the sake of money? He asked his mother, not realizing the cruelty of this question, and only wishing to show his noble-mindedness. No, you have not understood me, said his mother, not knowing how to justify herself. You have not understood me, Nikolinka. It is your happiness I wish for, she added, feeling that she was telling an untruth and was becoming entangled. She began to cry. Mama, don't cry. Only tell me you wish it, and you know I will give my life, anything to put you at ease, said Nicholas. I will sacrifice anything for you, even my feelings. But the Countess did not want a question put like that. She did not want a sacrifice from her son. She herself wished to make a sacrifice for him. No, you have not understood me. Don't let us talk about it, she replied, wiping away her tears. Maybe I do love a poor girl, said Nicholas to himself. Am I to sacrifice my feelings and my honor for money? I wonder how Mama could speak so to me. Because Sonia is poor, I must not love her, he thought. Must not respond to her faithful, devoted love? Yet I should certainly be happier with her than with some doll like Julie. I can always sacrifice my feelings for my family's welfare, he said to himself. But I can't coerce my feelings. If I love Sonia, that feeling is for me stronger and higher than all else. Nicholas did not go to Moscow, and the Countess did not renew the conversation with him about marriage. She saw with sorrow, and sometimes with exasperation, symptoms of a growing attachment between her son and the portionless Sonia. Though she blamed herself for it, she could not refrain from grumbling at and worrying Sonia, often pulling her up without reason, addressing her stiffly as "my dear," and using the formal "you" instead of the intimate "thou" in speaking to her. The kind-hearted Countess was the more vexed with Sonia because that dark, poor niece of hers was so meek, so kind, so devotedly grateful to her benefactors, and so faithfully, unchallengingly, and unselfishly in love with Nicholas, that there were no grounds for finding fault with her. Nicholas was spending the last of his leave at home. A fourth letter had come from Prince Andrew, from Rome, in which he wrote that he would have been on his way back to Russia long ago, had not his wound unexpectedly reopened in the warm climate, which obliged him to defer his return to the beginning of the new year. Natasha was still as much in love with her betrothed, found the same comfort in that love, and was still as ready to throw herself into all the pleasures of life as before. But at the end of the 4th month of their separation, she began to have fits of depression, which she could not master. She felt sorry for herself, sorry that she was being wasted all this time and of no use to anyone, while she felt herself so capable of loving and being loved. Things were not cheerful in the Rostovs' home. All right, that concludes my reading of chapter 136. I hope you enjoyed it. I will now proceed to my reflection on the same. A Year of War and Peace, day 136. Stuck in the net. We're all a bunch of Rostovs. It's true. We're very likely, just as the Countess in today's chapter, to begin the search for solutions to our problems in places, persons, and things over which we have no control. Like the Rostovs, the longer we spend looking in the wrong places, the worse our problems become. It's almost as worse as it can get for the Rostovs. It's so bad, in fact, that they're thinking of selling their ancestral home and estate near Moscow to pay their debts. It doesn't occur to them to cut it out with the extravagant spending, though. Nope. They keep it up with their old habits of life. They entertain guests, they maintain their lavish hunting apparatus, and they refuse to give up hosting expensive parties. To address these financial problems, the Countess settles on a single solution. Nicholas must marry rich. She's even got the perfect match for him, Julie Karegina. What could go wrong? Well, lots could go wrong. First, Nicholas does not want to marry Julie. At this point, he still has feelings for Sonia, and he refuses to sacrifice his heart for the sake of money. Second, perhaps Julie doesn't want to marry Nicholas either. More on this later. For now, it's important to note how the Countess seeks a solution to her problems outside her own sphere of influence. Tolstoy describes the Rostov situation as being caught in a net, where each thrashing attempt for freedom only serves to enmesh and entangle them further. They might want to stop thrashing about, and instead calmly inquire of themselves what they have in their power to change. Daily meditation. Thus then in life also the chief business is this: distinguish and separate things, and say, externals are not in my power, will is in my power. Where shall I seek the good and bad? Within, in the things which are my own. But in what does not belong to you, call nothing either good or bad, or profit or damage, or anything of the kind. Epictetus, The Discourses. All right, thanks for listening. That concludes my reading and reflection on chapter 136. I hope you liked it. Thanks so much for joining me. Remember that if you'd like to support me, you can do so either by purchasing the ebook, A Year of War and Peace, becoming a patron at patreon.com, or making a one-time donation at PayPal. The links to all that are below in the show notes. Tomorrow we're going to be reading and reflecting on chapter 137. I hope you'll join me. Until then, take care of yourselves and others.